What's up, cousins? Anthony Jones here with Brigade Boats, and in today's video I'm going to show you guys how I built a custom rod locker inside one of my Jon boat builds from start to finish, step by step and in full effect. Stick around, I'll show you the entire process.
We got another one, full build. I'm nicknaming this one the Battleship, and as you can see, I am to the portion of the build where I am doing the rod locker. This is the biggest boat I've done yet, and it's going to hold a lot of rods because we've got twin rod lockers. We've got one rod locker on this side, and we're going to have another rod locker on this side that I've yet to fabricate. Now, I took the liberty to go ahead and do one side and create a plan of attack so I could replicate that on the other side and show it to you in this video step by step. This side is pretty much done, besides this area here is going to get pour foam, but I'm going to do all the pour foam at the end of the project and do both sides at the same time. I've never done a rod locker video on my channel before, nor have I covered anything regarding pour foam, and we're going to be doing both of those things in this video with the dual rod lockers.
What better time to share with you 6 Sense Fishing's new rod series than within a rod locker build video? Guys, 6 Sense Fishing just came out with the all-new Response series.
The 6 Sense Fishing Response rods are infused with nanosense resin, which makes them strong and extremely sensitive. The durability and sensitivity is what sets these rods apart. I personally love the EVA foam grip in combo with a hardened rubberized rear grip. These rods just feel comfortable in your hand. Of course, you can't go wrong with Fuji Concept O guides, a teardrop hook keeper design, and a price point that won't break the bank. Get your Response rods at 6sensefishing.com, and don't forget to use the code BRIGADE at checkout to save 10% off your entire order. Links below in the video description. I did want to mention that this boat came to me with framing already in it. I'm simply finishing a project that somebody else started. So if you see the square tubing, some of the fabrication or the well work, just know that I'm not responsible for that. I'm just carrying the baton to the finish line to get this thing wrapped up. And this rod locker was framed out at 4 foot by 18 inches. And we're going to fill this entire void with one of Nate's aluminum dry hatch lids. These are available on tinyboatnation.net. Use that code BRIGADE at checkout to save 5% off your order. Gonna leave the links to this among other parts down in the video description. So I've got 4 foot in length within the rod box. Then I've got another 5 foot of PVC running through, giving my customer the ability to store rods up to 9 foot in length. If you're doing this project yourself within your own boat, look at the length of the rods that you plan on putting within your rod locker and the space available within your boat, and then design your rod locker around those factors. The inside diameter of this PVC pipe is 1.5 inches. I used 1.5 inches because my customer has some spinning rods and I wanted to give him max clearance. On spinning rods, they have much larger eyes than bait casters. So max clearance on the inside diameter with the 1.5 inches, max length for the longer rods that he has. So we really did custom design this around his fishing equipment. What's yet to be seen, I've got to fabricate some sort of holder or system for the butt end of the rods on this back side of the rod locker, but we're going to address that later in the project. Now that I've got you caught up to speed with what I've done so far, the materials I've used, why I designed it the way that I did, and what I have yet to do, all we got to do is replicate this on the other side and finish out the project. So let's get started. First things first, I need to go ahead and measure out and drill my holes for where the tubes are going to go. I've transferred the measurements that I made on the other side, 3.5, 6.5, 9.5, down from the top of the framing. Then we're going to go 4, 7, and 10 out. And that's going to be on center, and you'll see what I'm talking about. We're going 3 inches from center to center of the tubes. We're going to do 3, 2, and 3, just like the other side. Got it all laid out. Got my 2 Ryobi drills hooked up, ready to drill some holes. 3/16 inch drill bit on this one for pilot hole. Running a 1 7/8 hole saw on this one for the actual rod tube holes. And I ordered this size hole saw from Amazon specifically for this rod locker install. 1 7/8 is the closest size I can get to the outside diameter of the PVC that we're using for these rod tubes. And I want them to fit as tight and snug into this wall as possible because the finished product is going to be flushed out and we're going to do some pour foam in there. So I want a nice tight fitment. Nothing special, using the old Ryobi with the 40 tooth DeWalt blade.
to cut aluminum. All right, on the inside of this aluminum, I took a grinder and cleaned up around the holes, and I did this for a few reasons. Number one, when the tubes go through, I'm going to be gluing the inside perimeter of all these tubes into place, and I'm doing that to make everything tight and secure long term, but also to create a seal. So hopefully when I do pour foam within this chamber, it doesn't leak back into the rod box. Went ahead and cleaned up around the holes inside the rod locker as well. Took this level and I planed down, added some 1.5 by 1.5 1/16 aluminum for framing. Same thing here, planed down. This is going to give us something to tie our sheet aluminum into. Sheet aluminum, rod tubes go through, creates a support system using 3/16 bit, 3/16 standard rivets, grip range 1/4 to 3/8. And then of course the Milwaukee M12 battery powered rivet gun. Don't leave home without it. And quick note guys, this 2-inch tube, in case you're wondering, we're framing and doing aluminum all around this, kept that as low as possible. This is actually a battery box that we did up front of this boat. And I wanted to have a way on both sides of the boat to feed electronics cables, wiring through. So this is just 2-inch PVC that's routed. It goes around and then it goes all the way to the back of the boat. So there's a long-term solution for routing wires where necessary. There's going to be an access panel right here in this box so wires can be routed. That's what that is all about, in case you're wondering. Time to cut some sheet aluminum. This is 060 sheet aluminum and running the Bauer shears. Got those at Harbor Freight. Absolutely love those things, man. They have more than paid for themselves in the few builds I've used them on. I'm going to go ahead and cut this out with these shears. Panels are in. I got them laid out to match this. Time to drill some holes. Quick note, on these holes in the rod locker, I went with a 1 7/8 hole saw, and that is a super tight fit. I actually had to sand the inside perimeter of the holes to even get the tube through, but once it goes through, again, super tight fit. So to avoid fighting this all the way through 3 panels with that tight of a fit, we're going to rock out with a 2-inch hole saw on these. That way, once I get it through, I've got some play in these next 2 panels to make adjustments and easily slide the 5-foot tubes through. Then I come back on these panels and glue around the joints where the PVC goes through the panels. And once that sets up, everything is super tight and secure. All the holes are drilled. And then I went inside of here with this rotary tool by Milwaukee, and man, I can't tell you how often I use one of these just in crazy places you never think you need one. I use it almost every day, and I get these little sanding wheels from Amazon. You can see that one smoked. Get them from Amazon. You get like 100 of them for 10 bucks. And I just grind out the inside of these holes very gently just to give enough clearance for this PVC to be able to go through. This is pretty much the basic look. Again, this is going to be flushed out with the face. We're going to glue inside. And then on these other holes that were a little bit bigger, we're going to glue around the perimeter here and glue around the perimeter here. You can see that's got a little bit of a gap. My main concern was getting it as tight as possible on this face of the rod locker. I'm going to go ahead and cut the rest of the tubes and then install them. Now I'm going to work from the bottom up and glue the joints as I go. Few things I did off camera I'd like to go over. Number one, took a triangle of 060 sheet aluminum and just kind of filled that void, attached it into this panel. Number two, got some pink foam. These are just scrap pieces, 1/2 inch, and then just trimmed it and glued it into place. If you look under here, under all these boxes, there's a big void. So we're just trying to seal that off. That's all I'm trying to do. I'm not going for perfection. Taping any gaps that I had, and especially around that. And when I do the pour foam, it won't seep underneath
underneath of these compartments and expand. It won't leak out in places I don't really want it to go. So just doing my best to seal this off and make this one unit. I'm gonna go ahead and install the tubes. 5 foot, again, 1.5 inch inside diameter, about 1 7/8 inches outside diameter, going in the boat right now. I'm trying to get them as flush as possible. If there's a little bit of an overhang, not necessarily worried about it. I could come back, sand it off, and then flush them out. Once I get them where I want them, I'm just taking some Gorilla Tape and I'm just wrapping them, getting them tight and taped up. And then at that point, they're not really going anywhere. They're just temporarily in place. Taking my Gorilla construction adhesive. This is max strength. All right, this stuff is pretty nice, man. I like this stuff a lot. And I'm just squirting some around the entire perimeter of each tube on the inside of this joint, and then on the inside of this one, as you can see, and then on the inside of that. And I'm here to tell you, when that stuff cures up, it's rock solid. It is not going anywhere at that point. What it doubles as on this side, where this is going to be encapsulated for pour foam, it actually seals that void around all of these holes, because remember, I cut these a little bit big so I didn't have to fight the tubes in. Fast forward, you'll notice lids are in, the back is framed, decking is in, everything was completely decked. I shifted gears off camera, stopped the rod locker project, and then did all this so we could go ahead and get the boat scanned. This boat is getting custom routed hydroturf job inside of it that needs to be produced somewhere else, and they have to scan the inside of the boat to put it into production. So they came, did that, and now that that's done, I'm pulling the decking parts back off, back on the rod locker. Not that it really pertains to this video, but I'll go ahead and let you know I am going to have to add a little bit of framing here, here, and here, and one piece of angle down the side. After I do that, we're going to go ahead and pour foam. Added some framing. No, I mentioned that in the previous clip. Did it on both sides, in between these quadrants. Just didn't feel like that span was close enough, so added some framing for decking support. Underneath this framing, ran some tube, so it's supported, no sags. And then, of course, got some pour foam already done on that other side. Which leads me to what we'll be using on this project. US Composites Marine Urethane Pour Foam. This is available on tinyboatnation.net. That's where I got this kit from. And actually, I've got 3 of these kits in this entire boat build that I've used, between the live well, the other cooler, and then, of course, these rod lockers. Stuff is really easy to work with. You literally just mix equal parts together in a container for 25 seconds, and then you pour. Now, the expansion rate of the pour foam is, for me, not an exact science. It's dependent on a few variables. You could mathematically try to calculate out how much to mix, at what your outside temperature or working temperature is, and what your cubic footage is. But for me, man, I like to risk it for the biscuit. I literally just mix equal amounts and just guesstimate. We'll start off with 1 pour. I'm going to do 24 ounces of each part A and B, mix it in here, and then pour it. And then as it expands, that's when I start dropping down my mix rate. So might do 16 ounces, 12 ounces of equal parts on the next one, and just try to get it to feather out about where I wanted it. If it over pours, that's okay. You could cut it or clean it up after it hardens. But we want to just kind of get to that sweet spot of filling everything up nice and evenly and to the top. Will reiterate, I've got all my seams inside taped off. Anywhere there's an air void, to try to keep the pour foam in here. Now, there's going to be some seepage, but we really want to limit that. Another thing I did was I took 1/2 inch Artec foam insulation board and wedged it in there. Now it's just wedged in there as tight as I can get it and cut to fit. And what that's going to do is contain the foam within this quadrant. Decided not to go all the way to the outside of the boat, because honestly, that's just a whole lot more material. I'm going to switch the camera over to hyperlapse up here. There she is, guys, all pour foamed, nice and solid. It was a clean pour for the most part. I have very little seepage in there, and then I was really impressed with how
little seeped into the rod locker itself, just barely some, and that's it, which tells me these were sealed and glued really nice within this wall. And I'm here to tell you, this stuff is not going anywhere now. In case you couldn't tell from the time-lapse video, I kind of oversent it just a little bit on the pour foam. Had a bubble here and a bubble here. No worries though, after it's set up and cured, came back in with my handy little handsaw, zippy, shaved the foam down, nice and sculpted, threw away the excess. As far as that temporary wall that I wedged in place to keep the pour foam isolated into this quadrant without flowing over into this space, that was just this 1/2 inch Artec foam insulation board. You'll see it's got this foil side on it. I typically run that in towards the pour foam, and then when I pop it out, it just kind of acts as a mold release. Now in this case, the foil actually stayed behind and stuck to the pour foam. As you can see, that's no big deal, not a problem, but I did pull the rest of the foam back out. You could leave it or not, I just chose to pull it. Now with the pour foam done, everything up front is 100% complete. Everything underneath the deck is done. So we are back inside of the rod locker, the part I had been waiting for to finish this thing out. Off camera, I already completed the inside of that other rod box. And so that whole side is done. I'm not going to show it to you just yet, but it turned out phenomenal, man. I think you guys are really going to like the design and how I did it. And that enabled me to get a game plan together to show you how I do it on this side. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and pull this lid. As you can see, all the other lids in the boat are permanently mounted, but I left this one with just some rivets in the corner for mock-up and design. So now I could pull this lid, get it out of the way, and have better access to work in here. Got a brand new Milwaukee grinder, guys. My Hitachi finally caught on fire. So we're gonna use the Milwaukee with a flap disc. This is an aggressive one. It's a 36 grit. But we're just gonna get in here and I'm gonna hit any of these edges. I got pretty accurate on this side as far as getting these cut and glued in flush, but anywhere there's like a protruding edge, just gonna gently massage it and grind all that down flat. Hit it with a grinder, and then I came back with a DeWalt, some 180, just kind of feathered everything in. It's nice and super smooth. So now I could clean up the inside of this rod locker, and we're gonna do some hydroturf. I made this template out of construction paper, and I actually used it on the other side, and it fits perfect on this side, so we're going to reuse it. And this is going to help me get the exact sizing for the angle on the hydroturf that's going to go on this back wall, and then hydroturf on the front wall. I'm also going to use this. In a minute, we're going to build an aluminum rack system that's going to mount in here that holds the butt end of the rod. So this template's going to be used in a variety of ways. As you saw, got this cut out. This is 090 sheet aluminum, so nice and sturdy. As you can see, nice and tight fit. How I like it, cousins. It gets me excited. We're gonna make some measurements. I'm gonna mark where this is gonna go, and then I'm gonna make some marks on here of where we're actually gonna drill holes. Kind of mimic this design. What I'm going to do is drill 5 holes in the bottom, 3, and then 2, and the top will be flat. So the top 3 rods can actually rest on the top. I'm going to mark everything out, and we're going to drill some holes. Simply trace the marks over from these bottom 5 holes. All right, got the holes drilled. Use the same diameter hole saw used earlier in the video on the front. Holes drilled. It's in place and marked. We're going 4.5 inches in. I took the grinder and hit around the holes and then sanded everything. Next step is to add some angled aluminum to the back side to actually give myself a mounting point to this wall inside the rod locker. This kind of gives you an idea of what I'm going for around the frame. This is just 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch angled aluminum. And now what I'm going to do is go inside the garage and drill holes and countersink rivet these 3 parts in place. And then of course that'll give me a way to mount it to the bottoms and the sides. All right, simple process here. As you can see, the angled is on the back. Drill a hole, 3/16, countersink bit, rivet gun. All right, you can see I already have a hole drilled here. Very easy. Now, as you can see, I mounted the L brackets on the back side. All right, so it's not as obvious in the main area of the rod locker. Now, all that's going to get covered in turf, but still, we're going on the back side with the L bracket. On the front side, I took a grinder and just kind of shaved down those rivets so it'll be as smooth as possible. We're going to wrap the front in a vinyl. And then on the back, I'm actually going to just spray paint it matte black. So the next step is to clean this and spray paint the backside matte black. I took this red Scotch pad and I just hit the inside of all this angled aluminum that I plan on spraying, and I scuffed it up real good. Then I took 50-50 alcohol water and I sprayed everything and I cleaned it. If you remember, we already sanded this panel before I mounted the angled aluminum, so it's good to go. Just needed to scuff the angled and then clean it. Now it's ready to be sprayed. I like this paint. This is what I've been using, and it's a really nice paint as long as the aluminum is prepped correctly. So this is Krylon Fusion Matte Black. I have noticed that the matte black cures a lot faster than the gloss black. So I like to use the matte black, just a little friendly tip. Went ahead and cut this hydroturf, just used my template, running it to the top to where the framing is. Now remember, there's a lid and a track that goes in here, so we can't go all the way flush because we got to get that lid back in. So we're going to stop it just short on the framing. Again, hydroturf, EVA foam. This is black with the grooves, as you can see. It's got 3M backing. You peel and stick. Now, I'm going to put this back piece in first because when I get this bracket mounted in next, it's going to be tough to get in there. So we're going to mount the bracket next, and then I'm going to overlap the bracket with the floor piece of hydroturf. That'll cover the L that's going to rivet down to the floor and hide that for a clean look. And then we're going to do the bottom piece out here. I could one piece the whole bottom and then put the bracket in, but the L would be visible in the bottom and I just want to hide it. I want it to be super clean. All right, black is all dry, and now we're going to just flip this over, and on the front face I'm going to wrap it in some vinyl. And for this project, I'm going to use something that I've been using most recently. This is a carbon fiber honeycomb wrap. There she is, guys, all wrapped. This vinyl wrap is super cool, man. Did it off camera, guys. I've done vinyl before on my channel, so I'm not going to go over all the details. That in itself could be a whole video. The basic principle is to get it on there with no air bubbles. Use a very sharp razor knife, a squeegee, and just take your time. Maybe you might even need a little bit of heat gun. And that's about it. But now this is ready to go back in the boat permanently. Forgot I had to do the edge liner on the inside of these holes. Edge liner. Get this on Amazon. Leave the link down in the bottom with all the other junk I'm using on this project. There's no sharp edge now on that aluminum where I hole sawed it. You've got this nice rubber edging, and then it's going to protect the rods, and then it gives some grip. And this stuff is great on 090 sheet aluminum. That's what I use it on 090. If you go thinner, it's just going to kind of fall off. So when you put it on 090, it's a real tight fit. I got the panel back in the boat. It's mounted in place. Don't need a lot of rivets. Just did one on each corner. So 4 rivets total on the inside. Just went with regular standard rivets. Didn't even do countersink, guys, because it's going to get covered in turf. No big deal. Now I'm going to cut the small piece of turf in the bottom. One thing I want to do is make sure that my lines, my grooved lines, line up with the lines in the bottom. So wherever I start from one side or the other, I need to make sure I cut it in the exact same spot so my lines line up. So I want this to go down and continually go through and then back up, everything lining up.
Black is all in. We did this, then we did this small piece. It covers the mounting bracket for the rod butt rack. And then this part, and then this part. And all the lines line up. As you can see, they continue up the verticals. Everything lines up. So that turned out nice. Now on the sidewalls, I'm gonna do them in gray. We're gonna contrast the color, and it's gonna run top to bottom like the ends. So we're gonna do gray, we're gonna do gray. I typically do not hydroturf the entire inside of hatches. I normally just do the bottoms and do the sides painted like this already is. But because this is a rod locker, we're gonna turf the entire inside because I wanna protect the rods and reels. I don't want them banging up against paint or, you know, aluminum. So we're gonna turf everything, make everything look pretty. Moving on to the gray. There it is, guys. Gray is all in. I think it turned out really nice. Like the pop of color. Instead of everything just being all black, got that gray, and it's all in there super tight. I did go ahead and add rubber door edging to the top of this rod butt panel. And the rods on the top 3 rods just actually sit on top of this, so easy access. The other ones obviously lock into the holes. The next thing I got to do is put the lid back in, rivet it down, and then put the drain for the lid in. Go ahead and do all that, get it back in, and we'll give you a walkthrough of kind of how this works and what the finished result is. All right, guys, here she is, 100% complete with what I'm going to be doing to the boat. Looks a little bit different from earlier in the video when we were doing the pour foam in that quadrant and had all the framing exposed. Now that the decking and the sea deck is down, a little bit different here, but let's take a look inside of these rod lockers. Of course, that strut coming in handy, holding up the lid, which happens to have hat channel welded underneath it. So you can walk on this 4-foot lid without anything flexing. The latches are Perco. These are saltwater rated actually, and they are locking latches. Over here in the corner where that drain tube went in to drain the water through the floor, and then that goes and feeds into a channel in the bottom of the boat directing water to the back to the rear bilge. You can see here that lip on these lids on this track just catches the water all the way around the perimeter of the lid, and then obviously directs it to that corner, to that hose. Pretty cool feature. I am definitely satisfied with all the work that went into that. Let's take a look at the other side. On this side, he's got the fish measuring board routed into the sea deck on the lid. Pretty cool feature. And then this side, I've got rods already in the rod locker. I'm gonna do a demonstration, show you how easily these go in and out of there. And then right here, guys, a little bonus for you. He's got that on a strut. Look at that. Would you just look at it? And then he's gonna have tackle storage in here. He could fit up to 15 Plano 3700s, guys. Tackle on deck, rods on deck. It's a beautiful thing. All right, guys, I've got some rods over here. I've got a couple spinning rods, a few bait casters. I wanted to demonstrate with you how easy it is, even from outside of the boat, to get the rods into the rod locker in a secure position. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you that right now. And there you have it, guys. Total of 5 rods in there. Again, this holds 8 rods, and really with the bait caster, you could fit more than one in a tube if you really had to. So room to grow there, but I did 2 spinning rods on the middle rack where the holes are, and I did 3 bait casters up top. If you have rod sleeves on your rod, it'll be a lot smoother to get them in and out of the tubes, and definitely a lot safer to prevent any of the eyes from catching on the tubes entering. As you saw, I got them in there pretty easily from even outside the boat. You just got to pay attention to what you're doing on the front end as you're inserting them into the hole. I will go ahead and take one rod out. I'll see if I could do it one-handed, just kind of show you how they come out. And you just want to make sure you clear the butt end on the track. Apply a little bit of pressure on the rod as you slide it out. And there she is. One rod on the deck, one-handed, no big deal. I hope that you were able to take something away from this video. As always, that is the goal. You don't have to follow it to a T. Take away what you want and then leave the rest. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, guys. That helps me out greatly. Anything you do for subscribe, like, share, even using my affiliate codes with 6 Cents Fishing, Tiny Boat Nation, Waterland Fishing Optics, whatever it may be, links are down in the video description. That helps me out a bunch, guys. Got more content coming on this boat. Speaking of which, got a electrical video how to DIY your boat featuring this boat. So stick around, guys. Thanks for your support.